Chapter 10. Do you smoke? Jurek realized that he was known by too many people in the area. He decided to cross the Whistler River and try his luck elsewhere. As soon as his foot was better, he left the forest and set out. A wagon loaded with sacks of wheat passed on the road. A farmer and his wife were sitting in the front seat. Jurek greeted them and asked if they were traveling toward the Whistler. Yes, to the flour mill. Can you give me a ride? The farmer's wife looked at him and whispered something to her husband. Hop aboard, the farmer said. Jurek climbed onto the wagon and lay on the sacks, which were growing warm in the morning sun. The wagon jolted slowly along the cobblestone road, and he fell asleep. He awoke and opened his eyes when the wagon came to a halt. He wasn't at a flour mill. There were no water wheels and no river. He was in the yard of a large, three-story house with pretty trimmings. Surrounding it and several nearby structures was a metal fence topped by barbed wire. The wire pointed outward, against intruders. Jurek had never seen such a fence around a village house, but it was too late to do anything about it. The gate had swung shut and was guarded by a German soldier. He was at the local headquarters of the Gestapo. The farmer brought him into the house. A soldier shut the door behind him. The farmer let go of Jurek and stepped into an office. The soldier pointed to a kitchen and told Jurek in German to go there. A Polish woman was working in the kitchen. Without a word, she sat Jurek at a table and gave him a large bowl of meat and rice. He crossed himself and ate hungrily, finishing it all. Then he leaned back with a contented sigh. That was a serving for 2 grown men, the woman said, laughing and taking the empty bowl. Jurek rose and went to the window. The forest was near. Is there a road leading to the forest, ma'am? He asked. The cook pointed out the window. Do you see that wooden shack? The path to the forest is behind it. He peeked into the corridor to see if he could make a getaway. The soldier at the door spotted him. Grabbing Jurek's arm, he pulled him down some stairs and locked him in a basement. The basement was ankle-high in water. Some broken wooden crates were afloat in it. Jurek sat on one of them. After a long while, the door opened and the soldier told him to come out. He led him upstairs and knocked on the door. Come in, said a voice in German. The soldier ushered Jurek into the room, saluted, and left. The room was a large one. A young, blond, handsome officer was sitting behind a long table, his uniform brimmed with decorations. Beneath the German eagle and the swastika on the officer's cap, which was placed on the table, was the insignia of a skull. A large photograph of Hitler hung on a wall. The officer gave the barefoot child in tattered clothes a bored look. He went over to him and asked in broken Polish, What's your name? Jurek Staniak. Are you a Jew? No. The German gave him a slap. Where do you live? Wherever there's work. Where are your parents? They were killed when the war broke out. How? Jurek told his story. And since then you've been on your own? No, at first a couple took me to their village, but the husband got drunk and beat me, and I ran away. I don't stick around if I'm beaten. How old are you? About 9. And when were you last beaten? Just now, by you. The German laughed. I don't mean just one slap. A month ago. Why? Because the cows got into the carrots, and you ran away? Yes, to the forest, with my dog. You had a dog? Yes. Where is it? Some farmers killed it because a mad dog bit it. Jurek wiped his nose. How? They shot it. They did. The German raised his brows. Where was that? Jurek shrugged. I don't know. In the forest? Are you a Jew? No. Can you cross yourself? He crossed himself. Can you pray? Jurek said the prayers he had learned. I'm afraid I don't believe you, the German said. Take off your clothes. Jurek undressed, covering his private parts with his hands. The German rapped his hands with a ruler. Jurek dropped them, and the German said, What's this? I was operated on because of an infection. No, you weren't. Only Jews have that. The German slapped him hard. I'm not a Jew, Jurek insisted. All right, get dressed, the officer said. Jurek dressed. You're a smart kid, said the German. It's too bad you're Jewish. Come with me. The officer led him through the door and into the yard. He walked up and down there with Jurek at his side. Pulling out a gold case, he took a cigarette and offered one to Jurek. Do you smoke? No. The German lit the cigarette. They resumed walking up and down in silence. From time to time, the German puffed on the cigarette and blew out smoke. Jurek saw his right hand steal toward the pistol in the holster. Like an arrow from a bow, he took off for the back of the wooden shack. But he hadn't understood the woman in the kitchen. Although there was a path to the forest, it was on the other side of the fence. Jurek didn't slow down when he reached the fence. He just kept running right up it, scaling it like a wild animal. The first 2 shots rang out when he had reached the top. One whistled past his ear, the other grazed his shoulder. He vaulted the barbed wire, fell to the ground on the other side, and got to his feet and ran some more. There were 3 more shots. He heard a motorcycle and the barking of dogs. Turning around to look, he saw a cycle bumping over the field, 2 Germans on horseback, dogs loping at their sides. They were closer to him. He was already in the forest, pumping his long legs as fast as they would go. From somewhere came a swampy smell. He ran toward it, remembering what his father had told him. Suddenly, his legs were sinking into mud. He ran on until he could no longer pull them out of it. Then he grabbed hold of a low-hanging branch and lay down flat. He could feel his body sinking slowly into quicksand. Soon, only his head and his hands, gripping the branch, were above the surface. The dogs reached the swamp. They stopped at the edge of it and went off in another direction. After them came the 2 soldiers on horseback. Jurek could tell from their shouts and curses that their horses were deep in the mud, too. For a long time afterward, he heard them calling to the dogs. He pulled himself up by the branch. It creaked, and he was afraid it would break. Slowly, he managed to extricate himself. Then he crawled forward on his stomach, holding on to the bushes.